"What is this mess? Are you blind?" Claire Mitchell's sharp voice rang out, drawing the attention of several passing employees. She marched up to Marcus Williams, her eyes blazing with irritation. His janitor's uniform looked almost out of place against the gleaming white marble floors and high-end office furniture at Williams. Realty Group. "I just wiped it down," Marcus said calmly, gesturing to the polished glass table. Claire's lips curled into a sneer. Without a word, she reached for a full cup of coffee from a nearby desk and hurled it across the table. The dark liquid splattered everywhere, dripping onto the floor and leaving a trail of humiliation in its wake. "Clean it again," she barked, folding her arms across her chest. Her tone was laced with cruelty, her expression daring him to argue back. The office fell silent. Employees slowed their steps, casting curious glances toward the scene. Some whispered, others merely shook their heads before moving along, afraid to get involved. Marcus stood there, his eyes steady, his breath measured. He felt every drop of coffee that slid down the table like a silent accusation. He'd been on the job for less than a day, but the hostility had started the moment he walked in. And this was just the beginning. Have you ever experienced such unfair treatment? If you believe everyone should be treated with respect, no matter who they are, click that subscribe button now and tell us where you're watching from. Williams Realty Group was known for its luxury, success, and high-powered real estate deals. The building itself stood as a symbol of wealth, with gleaming windows reflecting the Manhattan skyline, stylish workstations meticulously arranged, and custom artwork hanging on the walls. Every detail screamed power and exclusivity. But beneath the surface, not everything was as polished as it seemed. Marcus knew that better than anyone. He wasn't just some new janitor trying to earn a paycheck. He was the son of Charles Williams, the billionaire CEO and founder of Williams Realty Group. What no one knew was that Marcus was the rightful heir to the company. Today, though, he wasn't walking in as the heir. He was walking in as an undercover observer. For months, rumors had reached him, whispers of discrimination, reports of unfair promotions, and stories of employees being mistreated based on their background. Marcus needed to see it with his own eyes. As he stood there, holding a cleaning cloth in one hand, he noticed how Claire's smug expression grew as she watched him wipe the table again. "You'd better work harder," she said with a fake smile. "We don't tolerate laziness here." Her voice was loud, ensuring that everyone within earshot could hear. A few employees chuckled under their breath. Claire thrived on power, and right now, she was using every bit of it to make Marcus feel small. Marcus said nothing. He knew better than to react. Not yet. His mother had taught him that patience was the most powerful weapon in moments like these. Stay calm, observe, and wait for the right time to act. But deep inside, the fire burned hotter with each passing second. Claire Mitchell had no idea who she was humiliating. She thought Marcus was just another nameless employee, someone she could belittle without consequence. She didn't realize that the man standing before her had the power to change her entire world. The morning sunlight streamed through the floor to ceiling windows of the corporate headquarters, casting a soft glow across the polished marble floors. The entire office buzzed with activity. Executives in tailored suits strode by with purpose. Assistants typed furiously at their desks, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air. It looked like any successful business at first glance, but for Marcus, it felt like a ticking time bomb of toxicity, waiting to be exposed. His mop sloshed quietly across the floor as he worked, head down but ears wide open, absorbing every interaction, every whispered conversation. This wasn't just about cleaning floors. This was recon. Marcus was determined to uncover exactly how employees like Claire, the self-proclaimed queen of the custodial staff, had been treating people like him, those they considered beneath them. Claire's voice, sharp as a whip, echoed from across the hall. "Marcus, are you deaf?" I said, "Clean that hallway again. I can still see your reflection in the tiles, and it's not nearly shiny enough for my standards." Marcus looked up, his jaw tightening slightly. His grip on the mop handle tightened as well, but he forced a calm smile. "Of course," he said with practiced ease, knowing full well that she was simply testing his patience, pushing him to see how far he would bend. This wasn't just a bad boss having a tough day. Claire had made it her mission to break him. Since his first hour on the job, she had gone out of her way to humiliate him in front of anyone within earshot. And today, it seemed she was particularly determined to make an example out of him. If you've ever had a boss like Claire, one who seemed to enjoy tearing people down, drop a comment below and tell us your story. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Claire strutted toward him, heels clacking against the floor, her arms crossed in front of her chest. Behind her, a few office workers slowed their steps, eager to watch the unfolding spectacle. They exchanged knowing glances, whispering to one another. "Honestly, I've never seen such sloppy work," Claire said, her tone dripping with condescension. She gestured at an already spotless section of the floor. "Do it again. Maybe this time you'll get it right." Marcus took a deep breath, his eyes calm but watchful. He could feel the weight of their stares, the quiet judgment, the smirks hidden behind polite masks. He'd seen it before, countless times in boardrooms and country clubs where appearances were everything and assumptions were made in an instant. For now, he stayed in character. "Yes, ma'am," he said, keeping his voice neutral. Claire scoffed and turned to leave, but not before adding one more jab. "At least try to act like you know what you're doing. We can't have the clients thinking we hire just anyone off the streets." The words hung in the air like a slap, but Marcus didn't flinch. He had learned long ago how to absorb those blows without showing a crack in his armor. Let them think he was weak. Let them underestimate him. The moment truth was coming, and it was going to be glorious. As the day wore on, the mistreatment escalated. Claire called him out in front of a group of junior executives, loudly pointing out imaginary mistakes and berating him with a cruel smile. Each time, Marcus responded with a calm nod and a quiet, "I'll take care of it," storing each insult in his mental ledger for the reckoning that was drawing closer with every passing minute. And then there was Kevin, the smug senior manager who had dismissed Marcus on his first day, without a second thought. Kevin strutted around the office like he owned the place, his designer suit perfectly tailored and his air of self-importance palpable. When Kevin spotted Marcus mopping the floor outside his office, his smirk returned. Well, he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Looks like you found your true calling after all. How's the janitor life treating you?" Marcus paused, meeting Kevin's eyes with a calm, unreadable expression. "It's been illuminating," he said, his tone measured. Kevin chuckled. "Good. Keep it up. Someone's got to do the dirty work around here." Marcus gave a slight nod and resumed mopping, hiding the satisfaction simmering just beneath the surface. Kevin had no idea how much trouble he was in. None of them did. They were still operating under the assumption that they held all the power, completely unaware that Marcus's mop was just a disguise, a front-row seat to their downfall. Have you ever worked in a place where people like Kevin or Claire made life unbearable for those they thought were beneath them? If you have, you know how sweet it feels when karma finally catches up. Stay tuned, because you won't believe what happens next. By the end of the day, Marcus had seen enough. The arrogance, the cruelty, the unchecked power, it was worse than he had imagined. But it was also exactly what he needed to confirm that the rumors were true. His father's company had become a breeding ground for toxic behavior, and it was time to clean the house. And tomorrow, Tomorrow was going to be the day everything changed. The next morning, the office hummed with its usual energy. Executives reviewing reports, assistants scrambling to prepare for meetings, and the faint murmur of conference calls filling the air. For most employees, it was just another day in corporate life. But for Marcus, it was the calm before the storm. He arrived early, dressed in his janitor uniform once again, blending seamlessly into the background. His eyes scanned the bustling office, taking it all in one last time. He wasn't here just to observe anymore. Today, he was here to act. As he made his way toward the janitorial closet, he crossed paths with Claire, who stood in the middle of the hallway, barking orders at a junior staff member. Her eyes narrowed when she saw him. "You," she snapped, pointing a manicured finger at him. "Did you forget to polish the executive lounge yesterday? I swear, the standards here have dropped since they started hiring people like you." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his expression calm but calculating. He didn't respond immediately, letting her words hang in the air, heavy and revealing. A few nearby employees slowed their steps, sensing the tension. Claire smirked, mistaking his silence for submission. "You'll need to clean it again, properly this time," she said, folding her arms. "And don't even think about taking a break until it's spotless." If you've ever had someone speak to you like that, thinking they're untouchable, drop a comment below. Tell us your story. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to see what happens next. Marcus smiled, a small, knowing smile, and nodded. "Of course," he said simply, then turned and walked away, his footsteps steady and deliberate. It wasn't long before Kevin showed up. As usual, he carried himself with an air of superiority, his voice loud and obnoxious as he greeted his colleagues. His eyes lit up when he spotted Marcus cleaning a nearby window. "Still at it, huh?" Kevin said, his tone dripping with mockery. He crossed his arms, leaning casually against the wall. "You must love this job." Marcus kept wiping the window, his movements slow and methodical. "It's been revealing," he said, his voice steady. Kevin chuckled, oblivious to the double meaning. "Well, don't get too comfortable. You're not exactly climbing the corporate ladder with that mop." A few employees laughed softly, their eyes darting between Kevin and Marcus. Kevin thrived on their attention, his ego inflating with every chuckle. What Kevin didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that Marcus had already climbed higher than any of them could ever imagine. He was already at the top, quietly watching as they dug their own graves. But the time for watching was over. As the morning went on, a buzz began to ripple through the office. The whispers started small at first, barely audible over the hum of activity. "The CO is coming today," someone said, their voice tinged with excitement. Robert Kingsley, seriously? "Yeah, he's making a big announcement." By mid-morning, the news had spread like wildfire. Employees straightened their ties, adjusted their skirts, and double-checked their presentations. The energy in the office shifted, the usual hum replaced by a palpable tension. Kevin's eyes gleamed with anticipation. He had been waiting for this moment, a chance to impress the big boss, to cement his place in the company's upper echelons. He glanced at Marcus and smirked. "Guess you'll be mopping floors while the real professionals handle business," Kevin said, his tone laced with condescension. Marcus didn't react. He simply adjusted his mop, giving Kevin a measured look. "We'll see," he said quietly. The elevator doors dinged, and the office fell silent. Every head turned as Robert Kingsley stepped into the room, a commanding presence in a tailored suit, his eyes sharp and discerning. Behind him, a team of senior executives followed closely, their expressions serious. Robert paused in the center of the room, his gaze sweeping over the assembled employees. The air was thick with anticipation. Kevin stepped forward, his smile wide and confident. Mr. Kingsley, welcome, sir. We've been looking forward to your visit. Robert's eyes flicked to Kevin briefly, then moved on. His expression didn't change. Thank you, Robert said, his voice calm but authoritative. Today is an important day for Kingsley Enterprises. I'm here to introduce someone very special, someone who will be taking the reins of this company and leading us into the future. Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. Employees exchanged puzzled glances. Someone even gasped softly. Taking the reins. What does that mean? I thought his son was still overseas. Robert continued, his voice steady and deliberate. My son, Marcus Kingsley, is here with us today. He's been working among you, observing, learning, and seeing firsthand how this company operates. The room fell into stunned silence. Every eye turned toward Marcus, who stood calmly near the janitorial closet, still holding his mop. For a brief moment, no one breathed. No one breathed. Kevin's smirk vanished. His face went pale as the truth began to sink in. Marcus stepped forward, his posture tall and confident. He set the mop aside and walked toward his father, each step measured and deliberate. I'm Marcus Kingsley, he said, his voice resonating through the office. And as of today, I am your new CEO. Gasps echoed around the room. Employees exchanged wide-eyed glances, their whispers growing louder. Kevin's jaw dropped, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Claire's face turned ghostly white. In that moment, the entire dynamic of the office shifted. Marcus was no longer invisible. He was no longer just a janitor. He was their leader. The air in the office was electric. No one dared to move, and the only sound was the faint hum of the building's ventilation system. All eyes were locked on Marcus, the man they had ridiculed just moments before, now revealed as the CEO of Kingsley Enterprises. Kevin's face was frozen in shock, his carefully constructed arrogance crumbling before everyone. His brain scrambled to process what he had just heard, but the words hung heavy in the air. I am your new CEO. Claire stumbled back a step, gripping the edge of a nearby desk for support. Her face, usually smug and confident, was now ghostly pale. She blinked rapidly, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, but no words came out. The truth hit her like a freight train. The man she had humiliated, the one she had looked down on, was now the most powerful person in the company. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before Marcus continued, his voice calm and commanding. Over the past few days, he began, locking eyes with Kevin and Claire. I've seen the true nature of how some people in this company treat others when they think no one is watching. I've experienced firsthand the disrespect, the cruelty, and the blatant prejudice that's been allowed to fester here. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Some employees shifted uncomfortably, stealing glances at Kevin and Claire, who now stood rooted in place, their faces burning with shame. Marcus took another step forward, his eyes never leaving Kevin. And you, he said, his voice dropping just slightly. Kevin Matthews, the man who prides himself on keeping standards high. You were at the center of it all. Kevin flinched as if Marcus's words had physically struck him. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his earlier confidence replaced by pure panic. Sir, I didn't know, Kevin stammered, his voice trembling. If I had known who you were. That's exactly the problem, Marcus interrupted, his voice rising. You only treat people with respect when you think they're important. But real leadership, real integrity is about treating everyone with respect, no matter who they are or what role they play. The room erupted in murmurs again. Employees nodded in agreement, their eyes narrowing as they turned toward Kevin and Claire, who now seemed to shrink under the weight of the collective gaze. Claire tried to recover, forcing a shaky smile. Sir, it was all a misunderstanding, she said, her voice sugary sweet. "I was just trying to maintain company standards." Marcus raised a hand, silencing her instantly. His gaze hardened, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. "Company standards," he repeated, his voice sharp as a knife. "Is it company standard to throw coffee at an employee and humiliate them in front of their peers?" Claire's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced for a response, but she had none. The silence was suffocating. Marcus turned to address the entire room, his voice steady and deliberate. "Let me be clear. What I witnessed here is not just a problem with a few individuals. It's a systemic issue, one that will no longer be tolerated under my leadership." He paused, letting his words sink in. The tension was so thick, it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. "This company was built on hard work, innovation, and integrity," Marcus continued. "But somewhere along the way, we lost sight of those values. That changes today." Employees nodded slowly, their expressions shifting from shock to admiration. For the first time, they saw Marcus not as the janitor they had dismissed, but as the strong, principled leader they had been waiting for. Then, Marcus turned back to Kevin, his voice dropping to a chilling calm. "Kevin, your behavior was not just disrespectful. It was destructive. You created a toxic environment that made people feel small and unwelcome. And for that, there are consequences." Kevin's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally, but there was none. The people who had once laughed along with him now stood silent, their expressions filled with judgment and disappointment. "Effective immediately," Marcus said, his voice like a gavel striking the air. "You are no longer employed at Kingsley Enterprises." The room gasped. Kevin's knees nearly buckled, his face turning a sickly shade of gray. "Sir! Please," he begged, his voice breaking. "It's too late for that," Marcus said, his voice cold and final. "You didn't mean to get caught. That's the difference." Kevin opened his mouth to protest again, but Marcus had already turned his attention to Claire. "And you, Claire," Marcus said, his tone unwavering. "Your actions were not just unprofessional. They were cruel, throwing coffee at another human being just to assert your power. That's not leadership, that's bullying. And like Kevin, you'll also be held accountable." Claire's knees wobbled. She clutched at the desk, her breath coming in shallow gasps. "Please, sir," she whispered. "I'll do better. I'll change." Marcus shook his head. "No, you had your chance. You made your choices, and now you'll face the consequences." Claire's breathing grew ragged, her face flushed with panic. Her eyes darted around the office, desperately searching for someone, anyone, to defend her. But no one spoke up. Every pair of eyes was fixed on Marcus, waiting for his next move. "Actions have consequences, Claire," Marcus said, his voice calm but unwavering. "And it's time you learned that lesson." Claire's knees buckled, and she dropped into the nearest chair, her confidence crumbling into dust. Her hands trembled as she clutched the armrests, her carefully crafted mask of superiority slipping away. Marcus turned to the rest of the staff, his eyes sweeping over them. "I hope you all take this as a warning," he said, his voice ringing through the office. "This company will no longer tolerate disrespect, discrimination, or bullying. From this day forward, Kingsley Enterprises will stand for fairness, integrity, and respect for everyone, no exceptions." A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd, some employees nodding in agreement, others looking down in shame. The shift in the room was palpable. The toxic culture that had festered here for so long was being dragged into the light, and it was clear that things were about to change, permanently. But Marcus wasn't done yet. "Claire," he said, turning back to her, "pack up your things. You are no longer welcome here." The words hit her like a sledgehammer. Tears welled up in her eyes as she tried to stammer a response. "Please, sir, I didn't mean for it to go this far." Marcus's gaze didn't waver. "You didn't mean to be caught," he said, echoing his earlier words to Kevin. "That's the only thing you regret." Claire's shoulders slumped in defeat. She rose shakily to her feet, avoiding the eyes of her former colleagues as she gathered her belongings. Kevin stood silently nearby, his face a mask of humiliation and regret. The office was dead silent as the two disgraced employees walked toward the elevator. Every step they took felt heavy, filled with the weight of their misdeeds. The hum of the elevator doors closing behind them felt like the final nail in their coffin. Marcus turned back to the remaining employees, his posture strong, his voice resolute. "We're better than this," he said. "This company is better than this, but change starts with all of us. If you've ever felt that this place wasn't fair, if you've ever been made to feel less than because of who you are, those days are over. From now on, we build something better, together." The employees exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of relief and hope. It was clear that a new chapter had just begun. Then, Marcus did something unexpected. "Linda," he called, locking eyes with the one employee who had shown him kindness during his time undercover. "Step forward." Linda's eyes widened in surprise. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped toward him, her heart pounding. "Your integrity and kindness didn't go unnoticed," Marcus said, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. "When others stayed silent, you spoke up. When others looked away, you stood your ground. That's the kind of leadership we need in this company." Linda's breath hitched. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Marcus nodded. "As of today, you're promoted to head of operations. I trust you'll bring the same strength and fairness to that role that you've shown me." The room burst into applause. Linda's colleagues surrounded her, offering congratulations and hugs. It was a rare moment of joy in what had been a tense and emotional day. The applause gradually died down, and the office fell silent once again. Marcus looked around the room, his eyes filled with determination. "Remember this moment," he said. "This is the day everything changes." And then, with that final declaration, he turned and walked toward his father, who stood at the back of the room, watching with pride. Robert Kingsley stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You did well, son," Robert said, his voice filled with emotion. "I couldn't be prouder." Marcus smiled, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. The weight of the last few days, the humiliation, the injustice, the pain, was finally lifting. He had done what he came to do. He had exposed the rot at the heart of the company, and now it was time to rebuild. The room still buzzed with the energy of everything that had just unfolded. Employees stood in quiet clusters, processing the events that had completely turned their day and their perception of the company upside down. Marcus stood in the center of it all, still in his janitor's uniform, yet every ounce of his presence exuded leadership and strength. "You never truly know what's beneath the surface," Marcus said, turning to address the employees once more. His voice was steady, but it carried a weight that made everyone lean in and listen closely. "When I walked in here dressed like this, I wasn't greeted with kindness or curiosity. I was judged, dismissed. I treated it like I didn't matter. Why? Because I didn't fit someone's idea of who belongs in this building." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. "The truth is," Marcus continued, "respect shouldn't be reserved for those who meet some arbitrary standard. It shouldn't matter what someone wears, how they speak, or what their job title is. Respect should be the foundation of how we treat every single person we encounter. Without it, we lose the very soul of what makes us human." A few employees nodded in agreement. Marcus could see that his words were landing exactly as he intended. The realization was sinking in, not just for those who had actively participated in the toxic behavior, but also for those who had stood by and said nothing. "I didn't come here today to humiliate anyone," Marcus said. "I came here to understand, to see how this company operates when no one's watching. What I saw wasn't pretty, but what I also saw, what gives me hope, is that there are people in this room who want to do better, people who believe in fairness and kindness." Marcus paused, his gaze settling on Linda again. "Those are the people we need to build the future of Kingsley Enterprises." The tension in the room began to ease, replaced by a growing sense of optimism. The employees realized they were being offered something rare, a second chance to be part of something meaningful, a chance to be part of the change. Then Robert Kingsley stepped forward once again, his commanding presence filling the room. "What my son said is right," Robert said. "We can and will do better." Effective immediately, we are implementing a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination and harassment. There will be new training, new leadership standards, and most importantly, new accountability measures. The employees murmured among themselves, some looking relieved, others a bit nervous. Robert's gaze swept the room. "This isn't just about policy. This is about culture. It's about culture. It's about creating an environment where everyone, no matter their role, feels valued and respected." A few employees clapped, and soon the entire room erupted in applause. Marcus allowed himself a small smile, knowing that this moment marked the beginning of something new. The applause died down, and Robert turned to Marcus, his eyes filled with pride. "This company is yours now," Robert said quietly. "Lead it well." Marcus nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude and determination. "I will." Then, turning back to the employees, Marcus gave one last command. "This is your fresh start. Let's build something we can all be proud of." He glanced at Linda, who stood tall and confident in her new role. Together. The following days at Kingsley Enterprises felt like a brand new chapter. The air was lighter, the tension of discrimination replaced with a renewed sense of purpose and unity. Marcus was no longer the undercover janitor. He was now officially the CEO, commanding the respect he had always deserved, but no longer demanding it through power or position. Instead, his actions and character spoke louder than any title could. Standing at his new office window, Marcus watched the bustling streets below. The city felt different, almost as if it was filled with new possibilities. He thought about everything that had led to this moment, the humiliation, the quiet observations, and the painful moments of being treated like he didn't belong. All of it had brought him to this pivotal point. In that instant, Marcus realized something important. Sometimes the greatest power you can have isn't authority or wealth. It's the power to change minds, to inspire change, and to turn injustice into transformation. Later that afternoon, Marcus gathered the entire company in the main hall for a final announcement. His voice was steady and confident. "I've learned a lot these past few weeks. One of the most important lessons is that true strength doesn't come from titles or status. It comes from how we treat others. Every single person in this room matters. Every role matters." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. This company will no longer be built on division or arrogance. It will be built on fairness, integrity, and respect. We rise together or we fail together. The employees nodded, a renewed sense of unity in their expressions. Even those who had once judged him were now visibly moved by his speech. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus stayed behind, exchanging kind words with employees, shaking hands and offering encouragement. He made sure to personally thank Linda once again for her courage and integrity. "People like you are the heart of this company," he said warmly. "You reminded me what true leadership looks like." Linda smiled, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be part of this." Marcus gave her a firm nod before turning toward the door, his footsteps echoing in the hallway. This was just the beginning, and he knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. But he had seen the worst, endured the lowest moments, and had come out stronger on the other side. As Marcus stepped through the doors, sunlight spilling across his shoulders, he paused for a moment. He breathed in the fresh air, feeling the weight of the past few weeks finally lift from his chest. He knew that fairness and respect weren't just ideas. They were foundations that had to be fought for, protected, and nurtured. This victory wasn't just his. It was a message to everyone who had ever been made to feel invisible. Your worth is not defined by others, and your strength lies in how you rise after being pushed down. Marcus smiled to himself. He had set things right, not through revenge, but through courage and integrity. The road ahead might still have challenges, but this experience transformed the company and, more importantly, the hearts of those who witnessed it. Life has a way of revealing the truth. Justice may not always come immediately, but it does come. When you stand up for what's right and believe in fairness, you inspire change far beyond the moment. If you've ever faced a similar challenge, remember, stay true to your values, speak up when it matters, and trust that life will reward those who stand on the side of justice. What do you think about Marcus's journey? Would you have done the same in his shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe fairness and respect should be universal, click that subscribe button and join us for more inspiring stories.